Good afternoon, Year 6. This is actually the second time I'm trying to record this, so not only did the live work, but the first recording of this didn't work as well. So let's crack on. Percentages of whole amounts, part 2. So, can you remember from yesterday that we were looking at unit fractions and their equivalents to help us work out 50%, 25%, 20%, 10%, and 1%? So we knew that 50% was equivalent to a half, we knew that 25% was equivalent to a quarter, we knew that 20% was equivalent to a fifth, we knew that 10% was equivalent to a tenth, and we knew that 1% was equivalent to 1/100th. And so we used that information, didn't we, to figure out that if we were trying to find 50% of a number, we would divide by 2. We would divide by the denominator. If we were trying to find 25% of an amount, we would divide by 4, because 4 was the denominator. If we were trying to divide by 20%, it would have to divide by 5, because 5 was the denominator of a fifth. If we were trying to find 10%, it was 1/10, so we'd have to divide by 10. And if we're trying to find 1%, we'd have to divide by 100 because it was 1/100th. So hopefully that is still secure in your brain from yesterday. If you need to write any of those facts down, please do. But also remember, the video for yesterday's lesson is still up on the maths channel. So if you need to go back and have a little recap of that, then absolutely do. Okay, so today we're going to look at the partitioning method. So this is the method of trying to find different percentages than the one we looked at yesterday using the rules that we already know. So if we want to try and find 75% of 26, well, I know that 75% can be made up of 50% and 25%. And those are two percentages that I can find really easily. So instead of trying to find 75%, I could find 50% and I could find 25% and then add them together. So to find 50%, I know that that is equivalent to a half. So I divide 26 by 2, which gives me 13. So straight away I found out what 50% of 26 is. Then to find 25% or a quarter, I divide 26, remember I go back to the whole number, I divide 26 by 4, and that gives me 6.4. It's really important to remember that every single time you're finding these percentages, you're dividing by the whole given to you in the original question. And then if I know 50% is equal to 13 and 25% has equal to 6.5, I then just add those two amounts together, just in the way that I would add 50% and 25% together to make 75%. So 13 add 6.5 is 19.5. So using that partition method is a really good method to find difficult percentages. Okay, so let's have a look at this example. 1,400, and it's been partitioned into 10, 5, and 2 because we're trying to find 17%. So 10% is nice and easy to find. We know that 10% is equivalent to 1/10 of the full number, and therefore we need to divide 1,400 by 10, which would be 140. So we know 10% of that number is 140. Then we're going to go back to the main number, 1,400. We're going to find 5%. Now we don't know any rules to find 5%, but we do know that 5% is half of 10%. So actually all I need to do is find out what half of this 10% is. So half of 140 is 70 because I know that half of 14 is 7. So that was nice and easy. And then 2% here. We don't have a rule for 2%, but I do have a rule for 1%. So 1% is equivalent to 1/100th. So to find 1%, I need to divide by 100. So I could do 1,400 divided by 100, which gives me 14. So 1% is 14. Therefore, 2% is just going to be double that. It would be 28. And then we would add them all together. 140 add 70 is 210. Add 28 is 238. So we can partition it. You don't just have to partition it into 2 sections. You can partition it into 3 or more sections, whatever you find easiest. Okay, here's another example. So we're trying to calculate 24% of £304. Now, what we did before is we found the percentage of rules and then we kind of doubled them. For example, we find 10% and then we doubled it, find 20%, or we found 1% and we times it by 3 to find 3%. Here, you can see that you could, if you wanted to, just partition it into rules that you kind of know. So rather than trying to partition 24% into 20 and 4%, you could do 2 sets of 10. Now this person has partitioned it into 2 sets of 2 as well. But you could equally partition this into 2 sets of 10 and 4 sets of 1 if you wanted to, whatever's easy for you. Now 10% is easy to find because we know the fraction equivalent of 10% is 1/10. Therefore, we're dividing 304 by 10. Everything's going to move one place value down. So 10% of 304 is going to be 30.4. And we're actually going to have two sets of that, aren't we? Because we've got this here as well. Now, personally for me, I find it easier just to get those two together straight away and make 20%. So two sets of 10% is 20%. 30.4 add 30.4 is very easily 60.8. So that's our 20% already figured out. Now we're going to figure out these two sets of 2%. So the first thing we're going to try and do is figure out 1%. Because we don't have a rule for 2%. Now the fraction equivalent of 1% is 1/100. So to find 1%, we need to divide 304 by 100. Everything moves two place value chart down. So 1% is going to equal 3.04. That's 1%. Now, we've got a choice here. We could either multiply this straight away by 4 to get the whole 4%, or like Jade's done, we could separate it into 2 and then 2. Maybe it's not the most efficient method, but if that's what helps her, then that's absolutely fine. So here, 2% would be 6.08. And we would actually have two sets of those, because we've got two sets of 2%, 6.08. And then we'll add those together to make the 4%. You might be someone who would say, I'd rather just take the 3.04 and multiply by 4 and get straight to this, whatever you prefer. So 6.08 would equal 12.16. So this is now our 20%, and this is our 4%. So to find 24%, we just add them together. And this is quite a nice one to add together. So we are going to go 60. Now pay attention to the place value here. There's the decimal point. There's the decimal point. So this is the 10th column and this is the 10th column. So there's still going to be 6 in the hundredths column. And then we're going to have 8 and 1. So it's going to be 9 in the 10th column. Then there's the place value. Then there's 2 in the units. And there's 6 in the tens. So 24% of 304 is going to be 62. Not 62. Forgot to add now. 7 on there. How many of you are screaming at your screens there? And he's not doing it right. 60. Add 1 there for your 10 is 72. Yeah. So 6 is in our hundredths. There's nothing in the hundredths here, so that would be 6. There's 1 in the tenths plus 8 in the tenth. That's 9. We've got 2 in the units, and none of the units is there. It's 2, and then 1 in the tens here, and 6 in the tens there. So 72.96. See, I was looking at it. I was like, that doesn't seem right to me, and I've double checked it, and there it is, 72.96. And I know that's right because I know 25% of 304 would be about 76. We can see here that if I added that extra percent on, that would round up nicely. So that's another example of the partitioning method. But we don't just have to use the partitioning method. There are lots of different ways, and you can do some of it mentally if you want. So for example, here Mo uses a bar model to find 30% of 220. So he knows that 10% of 220 is 22, and therefore 30% of 220 is 3 multiplied by 22, 3 sets of 10%, which would give him 30%. So can we use that method to figure out 40% of 220? So if Mo knows that 10% of 220 is 22, well, to find 40%, we just need to do 22 multiplied by 4, or 4 multiplied by 22. Because that's the total amount of 10% 4 times. So then it's just simply 22 multiplied by 4. which a lot of you will be able to do in your heads, which is fabulous. So that's 88. So we know that 40% of 220 is 88. What about 20% of 110? Well, first of all, we need to figure out 10% of 110. So 10% of 110 is 110 divided by 10, because we know the unit equivalent is 1/10. So that would be 11. So 10% of 110 is 11. So 20% of 110 would be 11 multiplied by 2, which would be 22. What about 30% of 440? Well, 10% of 440 would be 44, because I'd do 440 divided by 10. So then to find 30%, we would need to do 44 times by 3. We wouldn't do 44 times by 30, because remember 44 is the amount of 10%. If we found 1%, then yes, we would do that. But if we found 10% and we want 3 lots of that 10%. So 3 multiplied by 44, which is 132. And then finally, 90%. Now this one's slightly different. We could use our knowledge of what 100% is. 100% is 460. And then we could find 10% like usual, which would be 46, because we would divide 460 by 10. And then actually we could do 46 multiplied by 9 to find 9%, but also we could do 460 take away 46, because that would be the 100% take away the 10%, which would equal the 90%. So that's a quick method we could do as well. So we could do 460 subtract 46. 460 subtract 46. So that is 414. So you can see there's a couple of different methods there that you could use. They all use the same basic premise of finding simpler facts that are easier to find, and then multiplying those facts or adding those facts together to help us find different percentages. Because if you can find 1% and if you can find 10%, then you can find any combination. You can find 76% by doing what 10% is times by 7 and what 1% is times by 6 and adding them together. As soon as you know 1% and 10%, that's fabulous. But you've also got 20% and 25% and 50% that you can use. So you guys have got loads of skills that make this really easy. So here are some more examples. Can we find 5% of a number? Well, you divide by 10, because that finds you 10% of the number. If you divide a whole by 10, that gives you 10%. And then we divide by 2, because 10 divided by 2 is 5. So let's use that method to work this out. So 10% of 140, well, that would be 14, because 140 divided by 10 is 14. And then half that would be 7. So 5% of 140 would be 7. 5% of 260, well, 10% is 26. Half that would be 13. 5% of 1 metre and 80 centimetres. Well, I would first convert that into 180 centimetres, so we're working in one consistent unit of measurement. And then 10% of 180 is 18. Half of that would be 9. So how else could you work out 5%? Well, you could work it out by dividing by 100 to find 1% and then multiplying it by 5. That's another way you could do it, and you would end up with the same answer. Here we've got calculate 15%. So this is back to the partitioning method, isn't it? Because to find 15%, we would want to find 10%, and we would want to find 5%, and then add those two together. Now 10% is really easy. We just divide by 10. So what's 60 divided by 10? Well, that's 6. And then 5% is just half of 10%. So 5% for this one would be 3. And then we add them together. So 15% of 60 would be 9. Next one, 35% of 300. This one's slightly more challenging because we do want to find 10% first. So 10% of 300 is going to be 30. But then because we want 30%, we're going to do 30 multiplied by 3. 3 sets of that 10%, which gives us 90. So 30% is 90. And then we want that 5, we want that 5% again, so here's the 10%, which is 30, so half of that is 15. 90 add 15, 105. Okay, everyone, now it's time for you to have a go by yourself. Go onto your digital worksheet and have a little go at finding the percentages of those whole numbers.